At my wedding, my fiancé forbade my mother from coming on stage, calling her unsophisticated. I stood silent for exactly 3 seconds, then grabbed the microphone and made a single, clear declaration that turned my fiancé's entire family into a laughingstock. Have you ever heard of a bride who tore her own wedding gown and boldly canceled her own wedding right in the middle of a lavish, multi-million-dollar ceremony? You have now. That was me. 7 years of patient devotion, only to be rewarded with a disdainful wave of the hand from my future in-laws, aimed at my poor, factory worker mother. They hid behind their Ivy League pedigrees, using their money and influence to corner my mother and me. But they were wrong. Watch how I rose from the ashes and delivered a proud, stinging blow, slapping the mask of hypocrisy right off the face of the so-called upper class. Today was supposed to be the most important day of my life. My groom, Preston, wore a $10,000 designer tuxedo, a perfect smile fixed on his face as he stood beside me. His parents, Dr. Richard and Dr. Eleanor Montgomery, sat at the head VIP table. Both were renowned professors at Columbia University. Surrounding them were guests in dazzling evening gowns and bespoke suits, sporting million-dollar watches, their laughter echoing with tales of real estate in the Hamptons and ski trips in the Swiss Alps. The smooth, professional voice of the MC, amplified by a state-of-the-art sound system, cut through my thoughts. And now, at this very moment, we would be honored to invite the beloved parents of the bride and groom to the stage to witness this most sacred union of two wonderful souls. Let's have a huge round of applause. I smiled, my heart soaring, and turned to look out at the guests, my eyes searching for my mother. There she was. My mom, Maria, was sitting at a small table in the corner, almost lost in the grandeur of the plaza's ballroom. She was wearing a simple navy velvet dress, its hand-embroidered details faded with time. It was a dress she had cherished, tucked away at the bottom of her closet for years, waiting for the day her daughter would get married. Her frame was thin, her shoulders slightly stooped from decades of back-breaking overtime at the textile mill in Queens. When she heard the MC's call, she stood up awkwardly, her rough, calloused hands a testament to years of providing for me ringing together in a nervous gesture. She stumbled on a chair leg, catching herself on the edge of the table to regain her balance. A gentle, shy smile graced her lips as she began to walk toward the white aisle runner. Just as I was about to lift my gown and step down to meet her, a cold hand clamped down on my wrist, yanking me back. I froze, turning to see Preston. The perfect smile was gone, replaced by a deep, irritated frown. "Wait, Grace," he hissed through clenched teeth, his voice low but sharp enough to slice through the soft orchestral music. "What is it, Preston?" "The MC is calling for our parents," I asked, bewildered, trying to pull my hand away. He didn't let go, his grip only tightened. He glanced toward my mother, who was slowly making her way forward, his eyes filled with an undisguised contempt. "Tell your mother to wait. Just stay down there." "What are you talking about?" I thought I had misheard. My heart began to pound erratically. This is the most important part of the ceremony. Why would she stay down there? "Grace, just look at her," Preston snapped, darting a look at his parents' VIP table. "That dress is so tacky. And look at the way she carries herself, so timid and out of place." My mother just gave me a look. "All of our parents' friends are here today, deans, doctors, people with real status in society. Can you imagine your mother standing on stage next to mine in that getup? It would be humiliating for our family. Do you understand? People will judge us." My ears were ringing. The words tacky, humiliating, felt like invisible daggers plunging into my chest. I turned to look at my mother. She had reached the edge of the aisle. It seemed she sensed the hesitation on stage, felt the cold, judgmental gaze of Dr. Eleanor Montgomery sweeping over her old dress. The smile on her face faded. My mother, the woman who had skipped meals to save money for my college tuition, the woman who had massaged her own swollen feet every night after standing for over 10 hours at the factory, was now looking at the floor. She nervously hid her calloused hands behind her back and took a step back, then another. I could read her lips as she mouthed a message to me, a forced smile so painful it broke my heart. "It's okay, honey. You go on. I'm happy just watching you from here." In that moment, something inside me shattered. 7 years together, and I knew Preston's family was obsessed with appearances. I knew Dr. Eleanor looked down on our small, rent-controlled apartment in Queens. I had endured it, worked myself to the bone at a top marketing agency to prove I was worthy. But today, on the day I wore this wedding gown, they were stripping my mother of her right to be a proud mother, all because of an outfit that didn't fit their social class. And Preston, the man I had chosen to be my husband, was siding with their hollow vanity, trampling on the dignity of the woman who gave birth to me. "Let go of me," I growled, violently shaking his hand off me. "Grace, what are you doing?" Preston hissed, his eyes wide with panic. "I told you to behave. Don't make a scene." I didn't spare him another glance. Bending down, I grabbed the flowing train of my designer French lace wedding gown, the one his family had boasted cost over $10,000, and ripped it. The sound of tearing fabric was sharp and final. The entire ballroom fell silent. Hundreds of pairs of eyes were fixed on me. I strode directly to the MC, who was frozen in astonishment, and snatched the microphone from his hand. "Grace, are you insane?" Dr. Eleanor's shriek pierced the silence from the front row. She shot up from her seat, her perfectly made-up face turning crimson with fury. I took a deep breath, clutched the microphone, and summoned every ounce of strength I had, making sure my voice was crisp, clear, and echoed throughout this opulent, money-scented hall. My apologies to all of our esteemed guests who have taken the time to be here today. My name is Grace Lee, and I have an important announcement. This wedding is officially canceled. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Whispers erupted like a disturbed beehive. Dr. Montgomery slammed his hand on the table, knocking over a glass of red wine. Preston stood paralyzed on the stage, his face drained of all color. "Why, you ask?" I smirked, my sharp gaze sweeping over the groom's ashen face before settling on my would-be in-laws. Because this family of esteemed academics just forbade my own mother from joining us on this stage. They were afraid the well-worn dress of a poor factory worker would stain their prestigious ceremony. They were afraid her hands, calloused from raising me, would embarrass their VIP guests. I pulled the expensive diamond ring from my finger and, without a moment's hesitation, threw it squarely at Preston's chest. It clattered against the marble floor with a cold, lonely sound. "Listen to me, Preston Montgomery. A man who can't respect the hard-working mother of the woman he claims to love will never be worthy of being called my husband. You can take your family's hollow vanity and cling to it for the rest of your life. My mother? I will take care of her." With that, I gathered the tattered remains of my gown, held my head high, and walked with steady steps down the aisle. I went straight to the corner of the room and took my mother's trembling hands in mine. "Mom, let's go home. This place isn't worthy of us." The piercing feedback of the dropped microphone still echoed, but the 1,000-square-foot ballroom of the five-star hotel was now terrifyingly quiet. The silence lasted only 5 seconds before a full-blown storm erupted. Whispers and pointing fingers from the guest tables crashed down like a wave. The professors, doctors, and high-powered business partners of the Montgomery family began leaning in, their hushed conversations filling the air. Their gazes, a mixture of shock, curiosity, and even pity, were all on me. You stop right there!" Dr. Eleanor's enraged, shrill voice tore through the chaotic noise. She stomped up the aisle from the VIP table, her elegant, professorial facade completely abandoned. Her face, meticulously made up with luxury cosmetics, was now a blotchy red. The muscles in her cheeks twitched with rage as she pointed a finger, adorned with a dazzling diamond ring, directly at my face, heedless of the hundreds of watching eyes. The Montgomery family was truly cursed to have ever considered letting a classless, uneducated girl like you into our home. Do you think you can just grab a microphone and cancel a wedding? What kind of circus act is this? Are you trying to smear mud all over the face of this intellectual family? Dr. Montgomery hurried after his wife, nodding apologetically to guests as he passed, trying to salvage what little dignity remained. When he reached me, he adjusted his glasses and spoke in a low, condescending growl, the same tone he used from his lecture podium, just as I expected from someone from the slums. "No decorum, no class. You live in that rundown part of Queens, so your thinking is just as narrow. You think ripping a dress and throwing a ring makes you a hero. Didn't your parents teach you how to be a proper wife, how to be patient? I stood my ground, stepping to the side to shield my mother from their venomous glares. Her thin hand clutched the faded fabric of her velvet dress, her entire body trembling. Hearing Dr. Montgomery's insult, a hot rage surged through me. Decorum? Class? I scoffed, looking them straight in the eye without flinching. You talk about decorum while you publicly humiliate a woman older than you, the very woman who gave birth to your future daughter-in-law? The class you speak of is nothing more than arrogance, the right to trample on another person's dignity with designer clothes and empty titles. If that is the education your family provides, then I apologize. I would rather be from the slums. Grace, shut your mouth. Preston rushed down from the stage and grabbed my arm, his grip hard. The strength of a grown man in a rage sent a sharp pain through me, but it was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. His handsome face was contorted with panic and fury. Are you crazy? Where was my mother wrong? Look at what our guests are thinking. Apologize to my parents, right now. Get on your knees and apologize, and I'll cover this up for you. We'll say you had a pre-wedding breakdown. Hurry up. I stared into Preston's eyes. 7 years. I had given 7 years of my vibrant youth to this man. I once believed that beneath his obsession with appearances lay a sincere heart. But I was wrong. Even now, with my mother being so cruelly denigrated, his only concern was his family's reputation, the court of public opinion. His cowardice was laid bare under the crystal chandeliers. Apologize? I ripped my arm from his grasp, my voice as cold and final as the snap of a breaking chain. The only person who deserves an apology here is my mother. And listen closely. Preston Montgomery, this wedding is over. I hope you and your hollow vanity have a long and happy life together. Without giving them a chance to say another word, I wrapped my arm around my mother's shoulders. Mom, let's go. Grace! My mother sobbed, her voice broken. She tried to hold me back, her hands gripping my arm. She turned to Preston's parents, her hands clasped together in a pleading gesture. My dear, I was wrong. I beg you, sir, ma'am. My daughter is just young and impulsive. Grace, please apologize to them. You'll ruin your life, my child. No, Mom, I said through gritted teeth, fighting back my own tears. I gently but firmly pulled her away. My life would truly be ruined if I married into this family. Come home with me. I led my mother away, ignoring the chaos behind us. Dr. Eleanor's screams and curses, Preston's weak calls for me to come back. They all faded into the cacophony of the shocked guests. As we stepped through the heavy glass doors of the hotel, the crisp New York evening air hit my face, washing away the suffocating scent of artificial perfume from inside. I took a deep, shuddering breath, feeling an emptiness in my chest that was strangely liberating. We hailed a yellow cab waiting at the curb. As the car pulled away, leaving the brightly lit building behind, my mother's sobs grew more desperate in the small space of the back seat. The passing streetlights illuminated her face, etched with the lines of a hard life. Maria stroked the worn velvet of her dress, her tears soaking the fabric on her chest. It's my fault. It's all because of this old woman, she choked out between sobs. This dress is too plain, and I'm just a poor, worthless factory worker. That's why they look down on you, my baby. If I had been smarter, if I had just stayed home sick, my daughter would be married into a good family now. She wouldn't have had to suffer this humiliation. I've ruined you, Grace. Every word of self-blame was like 1,000 needles piercing my heart. My own eyes burned, and the tears I had held back finally streamed down my face. Mom, why are you blaming yourself? This was the woman who had worked until 2 a.m. at the textile mill, inhaling dust and lint until her lungs ached, just to pay for my NYU tuition. This was the woman who had eaten instant noodles for months on end, so she could buy me a new blazer for my first job interview at that marketing agency. Everything I had, my smile, my resilience, my independence, was built on the sweat, tears, and calluses on the trembling hands I now held. I wrapped my arms around her thin frame, burying my face in her shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of Vaporub mixed with her faint, tired scent. "Listen to me, Mom," I sobbed, but my words were more resolute than ever. "You have absolutely nothing to be sorry for. This dress is the most beautiful, most elegant dress in the world because it's filled with your love for me. They can mock you for not having money, but they are the ones who are bankrupt in character. They are not worthy of your tears. I would rather be alone for the rest of my life, laughed at by the world as a runaway bride, than to ever let anyone trample on the dignity of the woman who gave me life." I squeezed her hand, using my sleeve to wipe the tears from her wrinkled cheeks. "Canceling the wedding today wasn't a tragedy, Mom. The real tragedy would have been marrying him and spending the rest of my life in contempt, watching you swallow your tears every day. I have my own two hands. I can earn my own money. We can have a simple life, but we will have it with our heads held high. From now on, I will be your rock." The cab sped through the New York night, taking us back to our small, humble, but peaceful apartment in Queens. A storm was ahead of me. I knew a mountain of bills for the canceled wedding awaited, but in that moment, with my arms wrapped around my entire world, I knew that walking away from that false, glittering life was the best decision I had ever made in my 26 years. The taxi stopped in front of the narrow street, leading to our old, pre-war walk-up in Astoria, Queens. The darkness clung to the yellowing brick walls, where paint peeled in large, damp patches under the dim glow of a single streetlight. The quiet, dilapidated scene was a world away from the crystal and gold opulence of the five-star hotel. But strangely, it was the only place on earth that felt safe. I paid the driver and carefully helped my mother out of the car. The New York air had turned damp and cold, a winter front moving in. My mother walked silently, her wrinkled hand gripping the rusty iron railing of the staircase. Our building had no elevator. She had to lift her feet laboriously up 4 flights of stairs, wincing occasionally as her arthritis, a painful souvenir from years of standing at the factory, flared up. Watching her struggle, my heart clenched. I made a promise to myself. I had to make more money. I had to get her out of this place. When we finally reached our tiny, 400-square-foot apartment, I quickly shed the torn, cumbersome wedding gown and changed into a comfortable set of pajamas. I poured a glass of warm water for my mother. She sat listlessly on the worn-out faux leather sofa in the corner, her eyes vacant, staring into space. Before I could say a word to comfort her, a violent, crashing sound shattered the night's silence. Bang! 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 Someone was pounding relentlessly on our metal security gate, startling my mother so much she dropped her glass. "Grace, open the door! Open this door right now!" A man's slurred, angry voice echoed from the hallway. It was Preston. I frowned, signaling for my mother to stay put, and walked to the door. Through the bars of the gate, I could see him staggering in the dimly lit hallway. His $10,000 tuxedo was disheveled, his bow tie hung loosely, and his face was flushed. The overpowering stench of expensive whiskey and raw fury wafted through the bars. His loud, drunken shouting had already caused a few of our neighbors' doors to crack open, their curious eyes peering out. I coldly unlocked the deadbolt and slid back the rusty gate. The moment it was open, Preston stumbled in, pointing a finger at my face. You think you're so clever, Grace Lee. What the hell was that at the hotel? Do you have any idea what you just destroyed?" he roared, his eyes bloodshot. "My family's honor. My parents are respected academics. How can they face their colleagues, their partners, after tonight? You made my entire family a public joke." I stood with my arms crossed, calmly observing the pathetic, entitled man I once thought was my everything. "Honor?" I let out a humorless laugh. "You talk about your family's honor. What about my mother's? Who gave you people the right to trample all over her in front of hundreds of people?" Preston staggered forward, slamming his fist on our small glass coffee table, making it rattle violently. My mother flinched in the corner, her eyes wide with fear. "What did your mother lose?" he sneered, his voice dripping with the same condescending tone as his mother's. "My mom had good intentions telling her to stay down. Didn't you see how cheap and out of style that dress was? My parents were trying to protect our collective image, to stop people from judging you for your low-class background, and you were too ungrateful to see it. You threw the ring, you tore the dress. What were you trying to prove? That you're poor and have no manners? That was the last straw. 7 years of my youth, 7 years of trying, of enduring, all turned to dust by these cruel, heartless words. I stepped forward, my voice low and sharp, and tore away the final layer of his false persona. Don't you dare use good intentions to justify your family's bigotry. For 7 years, I was blind. Think back, Preston. For the first 3 years we were together, did you ever take me to one of your family's parties? No. Because you were ashamed to be with a girl from a rundown apartment in Queens whose mother worked in a factory. It was only when I started making good money at the agency that you told me I had to buy designer bags, that I had to learn to speak and act a certain way to please your mother. I bent myself into knots to fit your family's suffocating mold because I loved you. I took a deep, shuddering breath, a wave of relief washing over me as years of suppressed resentment finally came out. But you listen to me now, Preston Montgomery. Your family's intellectual veneer is rotten from the inside. It's nothing but hollow vanity and arrogance. You think you have the right to look down on the sweat and tears of hardworking people. My mother is poor. Her dress is old, but she earns her money with clean, honest hands. And you? You are nothing but a coward, hiding behind your parents' credentials, too weak to stand up for the woman you chose to marry. Preston stood frozen, the blunt force of my words seeming to sober him up. He opened his mouth to speak, his aggressive posture deflating, his eyes showing a flicker of confusion and shame. He reached out to touch my shoulder. Grace, I was drunk. I didn't mean it. My parents were just stressed about the wedding. Don't make this a bigger deal. Tomorrow, we'll go to the hotel, apologize to the guests. To my parents, I'll get them to forgive you. Forgive me? I laughed out loud, a bitter but decisive sound. Are you still dreaming? I don't need your family's forgiveness. This marriage is over. The moment you pulled my arm and insulted my mother, you were no longer my husband. I pointed to the door, my voice like steel, devoid of any lingering affection. Now, get out of my house. Go back to your honorable family, and don't you ever show your face here again. Grace Lee, you'll regret this. You think any man will want you after this? Preston screamed, his embarrassment turning to rage as I shoved him out into the hallway. Slam! I slammed the metal gate shut and secured both locks. His cursing and pounding continued for another 15 minutes, punctuated by the gruff voice of our building superintendent threatening to call the police. Finally, it went quiet. His staggering footsteps faded down the hall and into the darkness as a sudden downpour began. Outside, the storm raged, as if trying to wash away the filth of the day. I leaned against the cold metal gate, closed my eyes, and exhaled a long, ragged breath. I was exhausted, but the weight that had been crushing my chest for 7 years was finally gone. I walked back to the sofa where my mother was quietly weeping. I knelt on the floor, took her thin, worn hands in mine, and pressed them to my cheek. It's over, Mom. It's really over. Starting tomorrow, we begin a new life. No matter how fierce the storm was outside, inside our small apartment, the flame of freedom and a mother's love was burning brightly, warming 2 hearts that had just walked through fire. The pale light of a New York winter morning filtered through the discolored blinds, waking me from a fitful sleep. The storm had passed, leaving a crisp, quiet chill that seeped into every corner of our 400-square-foot apartment. I sat on the sofa, dazed, my eyes swollen and sore. In front of me, on the small glass table, was a messy pile of paperwork, a calculator, and a notebook filled with frantic scribbles. The sense of relief from escaping a toxic marriage had quickly been replaced by a harsh, unforgiving reality, the financial fallout of canceling the wedding. The dry click of the calculator keys echoed in the quiet room. I bit my lip, suppressing a groan as I stared at the final number glowing on the screen. The Plaza Hotel was demanding 50% of the contract value for the last-minute cancellation, $25,000. The designer French lace gown I had torn to shreds, $10,000. The imported flowers, lighting, and sound system, another $15,000. And that didn't even include the stack of wedding gift checks from my side of the family, which I would have to personally return to each person with 1,000 humiliating apologies. Nearly $50,000. The number was a mountain, an impossible weight on the shoulders of a marketing professional earning a modest $60,000 a year. My meager savings, accumulated over 7 years of work, had already been spent on deposits for wedding photography and furniture for a marital home I would now never enter. I dropped my head into my hands, a wave of despair washing over me. What was I going to do? Borrow from friends? Take out a bank loan? How could I possibly manage this debt? Grace, honey, have some soup. It'll warm you up. My mother's soft, raspy voice pulled me back. Maria emerged from our tiny kitchen, carefully carrying a steaming bowl. Her eyes were also swollen and dark from a sleepless night, but she forced a gentle smile to comfort me. As she set the bowl down, her gaze fell upon the paper with the bold, red numbers. The smile vanished. Her thin, wrinkled hands began to tremble. She said nothing, quietly turning and walking into her bedroom. A moment later, she returned, clutching an old, rusted Danish butter cookie tin, the kind she kept hidden at the bottom of her old wardrobe. She sat down next to me and carefully opened it. Inside, wrapped in layers of plastic bags, was a worn-out savings passbook from a local credit union. She placed the passbook in my hand and patted it gently. "Take this, honey. Pay them back what you owe. Then we'll start over. We will live with our heads held high. There's nothing to be afraid of." I looked down, my heart seeming to stop. The balance in the account was $60,000. The first deposit was dated 15 years ago. "Mom, where did you get this much money?" I looked up, my voice trembling, tears welling in my eyes. "Your Social Security is barely enough for your arthritis medication. Where did this come from?" She turned away, hiding the tear that escaped down the deep lines of her cheek. "It was the life insurance payout from your father. When he died in that construction accident, they gave us a settlement. I added to it with my overtime pay from the mill all these years. I never dared to spend a penny of it. I was saving it for your dowry, so his family wouldn't look down on you. But last night, I realized money can't buy their respect." I was stunned. Tears fell freely onto the cover of the passbook. 15 years. For 15 years, my mother had lived a life of extreme frugality. She would haggle over a few cents for a bundle of spinach. She would endure the searing pain in her knees through the winter, refusing to buy expensive medicine. And all that time, she was quietly saving every penny, earned with her own sweat and tears, to give me a shield to protect my dignity. "I can't take this," I sobbed, pushing the passbook back toward her. "This is Dad's blood money, Mom. It's your life savings. I'll find a way to pay the debt myself. I will not touch your retirement fund." "Grace," she said, her voice suddenly firm, grabbing my hand. "Money is just a thing, my child. Your dignity, your freedom, your smile, those are priceless to me. You are the only precious thing I have in this world. Take it and pay off the debt. Cut all ties with that family. Make a clean break." I threw my arms around her and wept like a child. The passbook in my hand was heavy with a love so immense, so sacred, that no luxury in the world could ever compare. It extinguished all my fear, all my resentment. That morning, I went to the credit union, withdrew the money, and settled every single debt, from the hotel to the bridal boutique. I had exactly $10,000 left. Standing in front of the gleaming skyscraper that housed the marketing agency where I'd worked for years, I took a deep breath. Yesterday, standing in that multi-million-dollar ballroom, I had a bitter realization. The most glamorous weddings are often the most cruel and hollow plays. Social status and expensive dresses can't define happiness if respect and sincere love are missing. I was a skilled event marketer. I knew how to connect with an audience, how to touch their hearts. Why should I continue to slave away on soulless advertising campaigns for a monthly paycheck? Why not use my skills to create weddings that were actually meaningful? Weddings that didn't need lavish feasts or displays of wealth, but were built on warmth, authenticity, and the celebration of love and family. I walked into my director's office and placed my letter of resignation on his desk. I decided to use the remaining $10,000 to start my own business. I would open a boutique wedding planning studio called Heartfelt Vows. I wanted to create simple, beautiful weddings overflowing with genuine human connection. My mother's tear-stained savings account had not only cleared my debt, it had ignited a fierce fire within me, a desire to stand on my own 2 feet. The storm was behind me. From this day forward, Grace Lee would live a completely new life. A month had passed since that stormy night in Queens. Heartfelt Vows, my brainchild, wasn't born in a glittering midtown skyscraper, but in a cramped, 150-square-foot rented room, tucked away in a winding back street in Bushwick, Brooklyn. With only $10,000 left, I did everything myself. I repainted the moldy walls, rode the subway to the Flower District at 3 a.m. to research wholesale prices, and stayed up all night designing service packages for my newly created social media pages. Those first few weeks were a blur of instant ramen and quiet sighs of doubt. 3 weeks went by, and my business inbox remained empty. Sometimes, watching my mother massage her aching legs, a familiar sting would rise in my eyes, and I'd wonder if my impulsive decision was leading us to a dead end. But then, a ray of hope appeared. One late afternoon, I received a message from my very first client. They were a simple, lovely couple, Leo, an auto mechanic, and Sarah, a preschool teacher. They walked into my tiny office, holding hands tightly. Leo shyly scratched his head, his eyes honest but filled with apprehension. "Hi, Miss Lee. We saw your posts online, and we really love your philosophy, but, to be honest, our budget is really tight. After paying rent on our apartment, we've only managed to save about $5,000 for the whole wedding. We don't need anything big or fancy, just a small, cozy ceremony for our families. We were wondering, is that something you'd be willing to work with?" Watching Leo's hands, stained with engine grease, gently hold Sarah's, which were rough from chalk dust, my heart stirred. $5,000. It was less than half the cost of the designer gown I had once worn. But in their eyes, I saw a love that was pure, genuine, and priceless. I thought of my own mother, of all the hardworking, dignified people I knew. "Don't worry," I smiled, pushing 2 cups of warm tea toward them. $5,000 or $500,000 doesn't define happiness. You trust me with this, and I promise to give you a wedding you'll be proud of for the rest of your lives. To maximize their budget while creating a romantic atmosphere, I chose a small garden restaurant overlooking the Hudson River in upstate New York. The next morning, armed with a sketchbook and a measuring tape, I took a train to the venue to survey the space. It was part of a larger events complex. The main buildings housed luxurious ballrooms for the ultra-wealthy, while the small, 50-person garden was tucked away modestly in the back. As I waited for the manager in the grand, marble-floored lobby, a sharp, whiny voice cut through the air. "A $250,000 diamond package, and this is all the Ecuadorian roses you have? What kind of operation are you running? My father is a senator. Our guests are all major political figures. If you embarrass me, you'll regret it." I frowned and turned, and then I froze. Walking beside the complaining woman was a face I could never forget, Preston Montgomery. He was dressed in an expensive silk shirt, his hair perfectly coiffed, his hands full of shopping bags from Chanel and Dior. The woman with him was none other than Tiffany Davenport, a high-society heiress, the daughter of a powerful politician, exactly the kind of suitable match Dr. Eleanor had always wanted for her son. Tiffany, draped in a chic silk dress and a string of pearls, was barking orders at the staff with the arrogance of a queen. Suddenly, her eyes scanned the lobby and landed on me. She paused for a second. Then a smirk spread across her perfectly painted red lips. She grabbed Preston's arm and strode purposefully towards me, the clicks of her high heels echoing on the marble. Preston's face went pale when he saw me. His eyes darted around nervously, and he tried to pull his arm away, but Tiffany held on tight, her chin tilted in a defiant, mocking gesture. Well, what a small world. If it isn't the legendary runaway bride I've heard so much about," Tiffany drawled, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, lingering on my simple blouse and the measuring tape in my hand. "I heard you quit that fancy marketing agency to start some little wedding planning business. Are you here looking for a waitressing job?" "Hello, Preston." "Ma'am, I'm here for work. I don't have time for idle gossip with strangers," I replied in a cool, detached tone, taking a step back. I ignored the flash of irritation in Preston's eyes. Ooh, touchy, aren't we? Tiffany laughed, a high, tinkling sound, and patted Preston's arm deliberately. See, Preston, you're lucky you escaped her. Imagine bringing someone with that kind of low-class attitude into the Montgomery family. By the way, Miss Lee, my fiancé and I are here today to finalize our $250,000 wedding package in the main ballroom. I suppose your clients are all poor factory workers, having their little budget parties in some forgotten corner, right? Someone like you will never belong in our world. Preston stood beside her, his face beet red. He bit his lip and stared at the floor, not daring to say a single word in my defense or to quiet his powerful new fiancé. Looking at the pathetic, spineless man I had spent 7 years with, I felt a strange mix of pity and amusement. I slowly rolled up my measuring tape, tucked it into my bag, and looked Tiffany straight in the eye. My voice was calm, but every word was a razor. Congratulations, Tiffany. A $250,000 wedding is certainly a perfect match for the social status the Montgomery family has always craved. But you know, I said, my lips curling into a faint smile as my gaze flickered to Preston's cringing face. A wedding that expensive that buys you a spineless man who can't even make his own decisions is, in the end, just a business transaction with a marriage license. My clients may not have $250,000, I continued, my voice clear and ringing in the vast lobby, but their weddings are built on sincere love and absolute respect for each other and for their parents. Those are things that even $10 million could never buy. A gilded cage is still a cage. I'd hold on to your groom tightly if I were you. Now, if you'll excuse me, before Tiffany could erupt in fury, I turned and walked away towards the small garden where the warm sun was shining. I left behind a fuming Tiffany and a frozen Preston, his head bowed in shame in the middle of that cold, opulent hall. This was one battle I didn't need money to win. I won it with the pride of a free woman. 2 weeks after that confrontation, Leo and Sarah's wedding, the first project of heartfelt vows, took place on a beautiful, breezy autumn afternoon. I had personally strung warm, golden fairy lights throughout the small garden by the Hudson. There were no expensive Ecuadorian roses. Instead, I used bundles of fresh, white daisies, Sarah's favorite flower, to create a simple yet breathtakingly pure floral arch. The guest list was just 50 people, all close family and a few lifelong friends. There was no polite, detached applause, no clinking glasses over business deals. The music came from a single acoustic guitar, played by the groom's best friend, its gentle melody mingling with the soft lapping of the river. The moment Leo, the mechanic with the rough hands, dressed in a simple rented tuxedo, tearfully slid a plain gold band onto Sarah's finger, he broke down. Tears streamed down his sun-weathered face. Sarah smiled, stood on her tiptoes, and gently wiped them away. In the audience, both sets of parents were also wiping away tears of joy. Standing in a quiet corner under a maple tree, I smiled, a profound warmth spreading through my chest. This was it. I was on the right path. True happiness could never be measured by a price tag. The first project was a resounding success, filling me with confidence. But life always has a way of testing you. 3 days after the wedding, my best friend from college, Jess, burst into my tiny Bushwick office. She worked in real estate, had a fiery personality, and was fiercely loyal. She slammed 2 bubble teas and a bag of snacks on my desk, then froze. Her eyes landed on an unfamiliar object, sitting on my cluttered workspace. It was a lavish crimson velvet envelope, embossed with intricate gold leaf patterns. A glance was enough to tell that printing a single one of these invitations cost a small fortune. But what was more striking were the names elegantly scripted on the front: Preston Montgomery and Tiffany Davenport. Jess snatched the envelope and tore it open. Inside, along with the main invitation detailing the VIP event at the very same 5-star hotel where I'd canceled my own wedding, was a small, handwritten note. Jess read it aloud, her voice rising in fury. Dear Grace, I hope you can spare some time to come and see what a real high society wedding looks like. Come and learn your place. Please remember to dress appropriately. We wouldn't want your tacky clothes to soil our venue. Kisses, T. What the hell? Jess slammed the note on the table, her eyes blazing. Is this girl crazy? And does that spineless ex of yours have no shame letting his new fiancé send this garbage to you? They're trying to rub it in your face. She crumpled the invitation, ready to throw it in the trash. Ignore this, Grace. They're just trying to get under your skin, to pour salt in the wound. That coward and that brainless heiress deserve each other. You are forbidden from going. You hear me? Why would you want to put yourself through that again? I leaned back in my old office chair, sipping my tea, silently watching her rage. Unlike my friend's fiery anger, I felt a strange calm. There was no bitterness, no gut-wrenching pain like that rainy night. There was only a sad amusement at the pathetic pettiness of people who use material wealth to belittle others. "Leave it, Jess. Don't throw it away," I said softly, taking the golden invitation from her hand and examining it with a wry smile. Jess stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. "What's wrong with you? Don't tell me you're actually planning to go to this freak show. Are you out of your mind?" "Yes. I'm going," I replied, my voice firm, my eyes fixed on Tiffany's provocative handwriting. "You think I'm afraid of them, Jess? You think I'm still that timid little Grace who would swallow her tears and endure Dr. Eleanor's insults just to maintain some fake, socially acceptable relationship?" I set my tea down firmly and stood up, walking to the small window overlooking the alley. If I throw this away and hide, Tiffany and her arrogant family will win. They'll think I'm at home crying into my pillow, filled with regret and self-pity, wishing I were still the daughter-in-law of their intellectual family. They want to use their wealth to crush my spirit, to make me bow my head. I turned to look Jess in the eye, my words sharp and clear. But I didn't lose, Jess. Canceling that wedding wasn't a failure or a loss. It was my liberation. I want to walk into that ballroom with my head held high and show them that I am doing more than fine. I've reached a different level of class, the class of a free, independent woman, a level that people who are dependent on family money like Tiffany, or cowards like Preston, will never, ever reach. Jess was stunned. Her anger slowly melted away, replaced by a look of awe and admiration. She stepped forward and clapped me on the shoulder, a proud grin on her face. "Damn, girl, you've really grown up. All right, if you're determined to turn their wedding into your own victory lap, I'm with you all the way. But listen to me. If you're going, you go as a queen, no simple outfits. We don't need a diamond-encrusted dress like Tiffany's, but you will wear something so elegant and powerful that it blinds them. Your poise will crush their arrogance. This afternoon, we're going shopping. My treat." I laughed and hugged my best friend. That afternoon, we found the perfect dress, a floor-length satin gown in a deep emerald green. It was minimalist, with no beads or sequins, but its expert tailoring clung to my frame, highlighting a quiet, regal confidence. Looking at myself in the mirror, I knew the timid supporting character from that old, sad story was gone. Now, I was the hero of my own. That weekend, I would walk into the Lion's Den as a victor. Exactly at 6 p.m. that Saturday, I stepped out of an Uber in front of the magnificent, canopied entrance of the very same five-star hotel where I had changed my life. A month and a half ago, I had left this place in a torn gown, my face streaked with tears, leading my shamed mother by the hand. Tonight, I returned. The emerald green satin gown shimmered under the lights. My hair was styled in soft waves over one shoulder. The confident click of my heels echoed on the marble floor. I was no longer a victim. I walked through the heavy glass doors into a scene of overwhelming opulence. This was Tiffany's $250,000 statement. A massive wall was constructed from thousands of red Ecuadorian roses. Crimson velvet drapes hung from the soaring ceilings, framing colossal crystal chandeliers. Yet, behind all that glittering splendor, the air was cold and impersonal. I quietly found a spot in a corner of the ballroom, swirling a glass of pale champagne, and calmly observed the high society play unfold. The guests were mostly strangers, dressed in designer labels, talking business deals and political appointments. No one seemed to care about the bride and groom. Near the entrance, I saw Dr. Richard and Dr. Eleanor Montgomery. They wore the same expensive attire, but their proud postures were gone. They were now hunched over, bowing obsequiously every time a guest from the bride's side, the senator's side, arrived. Their smiles were strained and fawning. They had gotten the high-status marriage they craved, but the price was their own self-respect. Feeling suffocated, I left the ballroom and walked down a quiet, carpeted hallway toward the restrooms. As I rounded a corner, I stopped short. Preston was there, leaning against a marble wall. The groom of the lavish party looked utterly defeated. His bow tie was askew, his shirt unbuttoned. He downed a glass of whiskey in one gulp, his eyes vacant and lost. When he heard my footsteps, he slowly looked up. The moment our eyes met, his widened in shock. The glass slipped from his hand, landing silently on the thick carpet. He stared at me, as if he couldn't believe the poised, radiant woman standing before him was the same one he had cast aside. "Grace, is it really you?" Preston's voice was hoarse. He staggered toward me, reaching out, but I took a cold step back. "Hello, Preston. The wedding is beautiful. Congratulations on getting everything you ever wanted," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. My indifferent words seemed to break him. His carefully constructed facade crumbled, his shoulders shook, and his bloodshot eyes filled with tears. He suddenly sank to his knees, burying his face in his hands, and began to sob like a child. "I was wrong, Grace. I'm so sorry. I regret everything," he choked out. "This wedding, it's a nightmare. Tiffany treats me worse than one of her show dogs. My parents have to bow and scrape before her family. I have no say in anything. It's all just for show, Grace. I miss you. I miss sharing a slice of pizza with you on the fire escape of your apartment. I was such a coward." I looked down at the weeping man at my feet. I felt no satisfaction, no pity, only a profound sense of contempt. Before I could speak, a shrill, furious voice echoed down the hall. "Preston Montgomery, what in the hell do you think you're doing?" Tiffany was storming towards us, her diamond-encrusted gown trailing behind her. Her face was a twisted mask of jealousy and rage. Seeing her husband crying at my feet sent her into a frenzy. She swung her hand and slapped Preston across the face. Crack. The sound was sharp and ugly. Preston stumbled, his cheek already swelling, a thin line of blood where her massive diamond ring had cut him. He didn't say a word, just stared at the floor in shame. Having dealt with her husband, Tiffany turned on me, her eyes bulging. "You shameless homewrecker. You came here to seduce my husband, didn't you? What right do you have to even be in this hotel, you trash from the slums? You think wearing a cheap dress makes you one of us?" She shrieked. "Security. Get security in here and throw this woman out." I remained perfectly still. I calmly brushed her, pointing finger away from my face, my gaze as cold as ice. "Lower your voice, Tiffany. You'll smudge your expensive makeup," I said, a small, knowing smile on my lips. "You ask what right I have to be here. You sent me a gold-leafed invitation yourself. Remember? I didn't come here to steal back the trash I already threw away. I came to see just how spectacular your high society play really was. You spent $250,000 to buy a wedding, and your family's power to force this man's family to their knees. You bought a glamorous facade, but you will never buy a man's self-respect, and you will never have real love. You two are pathetic in the exact same way. One buys her dignity with money, the other sells his soul for it. A perfect match." I gave Preston one last look. "As for you, Preston, this is the price of your hollow vanity. I suggest you learn to live with it. Stop crying about the past. It's pathetic." With that, I turned and walked away. Behind me, Tiffany's hysterical screams at her spineless husband continued to echo. The velvet curtain had been torn down, revealing the rotten core of their toxic union. As I stepped outside into the cool, clear New York night, I held my head high and smiled. My business with the Montgomery family was, at long last, finished. After that fiery confrontation, I thought my history with the Montgomerys was finally over. Thanks to the positive buzz from Leo and Sarah's wedding, heartfelt vows began to get more inquiries. My small Bushwick office was finally alive with activity. I poured all my energy into my work, determined to create perfect, meaningful weddings for ordinary couples. But the storm returned on a quiet Monday morning. I was working at my desk when Jess burst in, out of breath, her face pale. She shoved her phone in my face. "Grace, You need to see this. Someone's playing dirty. On the screen was a popular online gossip site. The headline was sensational and cruel. The runaway bride's wedding scam. Inside the shady business of budget weddings. My heart dropped. The article was a masterpiece of slander, accusing heartfelt vows of using wilted, chemically treated flowers, cutting corners on catering, and swapping out decorations with cheap knockoffs to profit from poor, unsuspecting clients. It dredged up my canceled wedding, twisting the story to paint me as a manipulative gold digger who, after being exposed by a prestigious family, started a scam business for revenge. Before I could even process it, the office phone began to ring. It was a client who had just paid a deposit, now angrily demanding a refund, then a second call and a third. Within 2 hours, 3 contracts were canceled. Our social media pages were flooded with 1-star reviews and hateful comments from fake accounts. My fledgling business was on the verge of collapse. My mother hurried up to my office from our apartment downstairs, a bag of groceries in her hand, her face ashen. The neighborhood gossips had clearly been at work. "Grace, they're saying you're a fraud, that you cheat poor people. How could this happen? You're an honest person," she trembled. Maybe we should just close the business. I'm so scared they'll come here, that the police will take you away." Watching her terrified, trembling hands, my own resolve hardened. I knew who was behind this. They weren't just attacking me. They were trying to destroy my spirit by hurting my mother. "It was her," Jess fumed. "I had a friend in media look into it. The writer is a former student of Dr. Eleanor's. She's furious that Tiffany made a scene at the hotel, and that Preston has been moping around, wanting a divorce because he still has feelings for you. So she's using her connections to destroy you. That intellectual family is rotten to the core." Hearing Dr. Eleanor's name, a cold smile touched my lips. She thought a smear campaign could break me? She was wrong. 7 years in marketing had taught me a thing or two about fighting back. "It's okay, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "An innocent person has nothing to fear. The law won't touch me, and neither will they. You just go make us some tea." "Let me handle this." I turned to Jess, my eyes sharp. "Jess, I need you to contact Leo and Sarah, and the other 2 couples whose weddings we just did. I need 1 hour of their time." That evening, instead of writing a defensive post, I went live on social media from my small office. The camera was aimed at a whiteboard covered in transparent budget breakdowns. I sat before it, calm and composed. But the real shockwave came from the people sitting beside me. Leo, the mechanic, his hands still smudged with grease, held his wife's hand tightly. "My name is Leo," he said, his voice firm and honest to the thousands watching. "That article called me a poor victim. That's a lie. Grace never cheated us. Our wedding was only $5,000, but she was there at 3 a.m., arranging every daisy herself. She made sure every guest had a hot, delicious meal. The article says she used fake flowers. Look at our wedding video. Do the tears of joy on our parents' faces look fake to you?" Next, Sarah held up a folder of receipts, showing every single expense, proving that my profit margin was modest and fair. The other couples came forward too, sharing their own positive stories, their sincerity a powerful weapon against the slickly produced lies. Then, for the final blow, I played the security camera footage from the hotel hallway, with faces blurred. The audio was crystal clear. Tiffany's classist insults, Preston's pathetic whining, and my own calm defense of my clients. To the author of that article, and to the person pulling the strings, I said, looking directly into the camera, "You can use your money and connections to attack my reputation. But you forgot one thing. Truth isn't owned by the person who can pay for a headline. Truth lives in the hearts of good people. Heartfelt Vows was built on integrity, and my clients are a shield that no amount of your dirty money can ever break through." The live stream went viral. The public turned, not on me, but on the gossip site. The tide had turned, spectacularly, in a single night. That live stream didn't just save Heartfelt Vows. It caused a seismic shift. The raw honesty of my clients was the most powerful marketing campaign I could have ever wished for. The gossip site was forced to retract the article and issue a public apology. The journalist, exposed as a pawn of Dr. Eleanor, was fired. The story became such a scandal that even the university where the Montgomerys taught issued a quiet reprimand. The intellectual, high-class reputation they had prized above all else was now a running joke among their peers. As for the Montgomery family, their downfall came not from me, but from the hollow foundation they had built their lives on. Just 3 months after the wedding of the year, Tiffany filed for divorce. A spoiled heiress could not tolerate a weak, spineless husband. Dr. Richard and Dr. Eleanor were forced to endure the humiliation of being dictated to by a daughter-in-law who held all the power, the very same humiliation they had tried to inflict upon my mother. Preston was left with nothing, no love, no money, and no honor. While their world imploded, heartfelt vows flourished. Inquiries poured in, not just from budget-conscious couples, but from a new generation of clients who valued authenticity over ostentation. Within 6 months, I had to expand to a larger office and hire 5 employees. I was finally making real money, on my own terms, through hard work and decency. One cold afternoon near Christmas, I left work early. Arriving at our old building in Queens, I saw my mother struggling up the 4 flights of stairs, her arthritis flaring up in the winter air. Her pained expression broke my heart, but this time, I didn't cry. I ran up, took the grocery bags from her, and gently led her back down. "Grace, what are you doing?" "I have to make dinner," she protested. "We're not eating at home tonight, Mom. Come with me," I smiled, hailing a cab. The taxi drove us away from the narrow, winding streets of our old neighborhood and towards a gleaming new luxury apartment building in a beautiful, green part of the city. My mother hesitated at the grand entrance. "This place is too fancy, Grace. They'll kick us out." Her voice held the same fear and uncertainty as it did on my wedding day. "No one will ever kick you out again, Mom," I said, taking her hand and leading her through the automatic glass doors, into a silent, swift elevator and up to the 15th floor. I led her to apartment 1508, and pulling a brand new key card from my purse, swiped it. The door swung open to reveal a stunning, sun-drenched 2-bedroom apartment with polished hardwood floors, a modern kitchen, and a large balcony with a breathtaking view of the city. My mother stood frozen at the doorway, her eyes wide with disbelief. I gently placed the key card and a set of keys into her trembling, calloused hands and wrapped my arms around her. "This is ours, Mom. This is our home. No more rusty stairs to hurt your knees. From now on, you can stand on this balcony and watch the world go by. I used Dad's legacy to buy us our freedom and our peace. I did it, Mom. Your daughter did it." Tears streamed down her face, but this time, they were not tears of shame or sorrow. They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. She hugged me tightly, her sobs shaking her small frame, repeating my name over and over. In our brand new home, the golden light of the setting sun streamed through the windows, bathing 2 hearts that had weathered the storm in a warm, triumphant glow. Kindness and perseverance had, at last, borne the sweetest fruit. 2 years flew by. Heartfelt Vows was no longer in a tiny backstreet office. We now occupied a bright, spacious studio in a beautiful, tree-lined neighborhood. I smiled at the young journalist from Modern Woman magazine, who was finishing up her notes for this month's cover story. "Grace," she asked, her eyes full of admiration, "looking back on your journey, from the canceled wedding to becoming one of the most beloved wedding planners in the city, what is the greatest thing you've achieved?" I leaned back, my heart full. "Freedom," I answered. "Freedom from the suffocating expectations of social class, and freedom from the hollow vanity that chokes the life out of real family love. The day I ripped that dress, I thought I had destroyed my future. In reality, I was reclaiming my dignity, and my mother's, and finding my true purpose. Without that ending, there could never have been this new, proud beginning." Later that afternoon, I was supervising a very special event. The 50th golden wedding anniversary of an elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. The celebration was in a quiet, historic garden, filled with the gentle music of a live cello. Mr. Peterson, leaning on a cane, held his wife's hand as he spoke into the microphone, his voice raspy with age. "My dear," he said, his eyes welling with tears. "50 years ago, I was a poor young man. All I could offer you was a promise. I owe you a proper wedding. All these years, you worked tirelessly. You raised our children. You stood by me through everything and never once complained. Today, I can finally say what I've kept in my heart for half a century. Thank you for not minding that I was poor. Thank you for choosing me, for staying with me through every storm. Mrs. Peterson wept, her wrinkled hand reaching up to touch his cheek. Oh, you silly old man, she whispered. A marriage is built on love and loyalty, not on fancy feasts. From the side of the stage, I felt a warm tear slide down my own cheek. This was real love. It wasn't in a business contract or a $250,000 party full of pretense. It was in a lifetime of shared struggles, unwavering support, and mutual respect. A gentle hand touched mine. It was my mother. She was wearing a beautiful, custom-made silk dress, her face radiant and healthy. Her arthritis was manageable now, thanks to good doctors and no more stairs. She smiled at me, then at the couple on stage. Watching them, I feel so happy for you, Grace, she whispered. I used to be so afraid that you had ruined your life that day. But now I know my daughter made the right choice. You've spread so much goodness into the world. I squeezed her hand, resting my head on her shoulder. It was all because of you, Mom. Your sacrifice, your unconditional love. If I had chosen that marriage just to please society, while letting you suffer in silence, I would have been nothing but a coward, a puppet in someone else's play. The autumn breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the sweet scent of late-blooming roses. I closed my eyes, breathing in the profound peace and pride that filled my heart. I was free. We were free.